the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy joint session with our Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. So welcome, everybody. Let me just say from the start that this is a briefing on the Wheaton Revitalization project. And of course, because of the pandemic, a lot of things had to be postponed, things like ribbon cuttings, etc. At the same time, we did not have an opportunity to, just kind of take a deep breath and have an update on where things are, because a lot of things have happened, really positive things, and we're very excited about all of that. But of course, there are a lot of other items that are outstanding, and there have been a lot of also questions from the community, specifically also from members of WUDAC regarding some outstanding issues. I want to thank our CAO, Mr. Medellino, as well as our Director of Transportation, Mr. Conklin, as well, of course, is Luisa Montero, who does an amazing job. And of course, Mr. David Dise, for giving me a preliminary briefing in response to some of the questions that were transmitted to the County Council. But today we have an opportunity to go much more into detail regarding some of these particular issues. There are some, also there's interest in making sure that we get a full understanding of our executive staff's plan for communication and coordination on many of the issues that were going to be discussed, and also, just kind of confirming who remains the point of contact and coordination to ensure a smooth transition as things are beginning to open and as things begin to come online. So again, just really want to thank everybody for their participation today. We do have, I think, a great packet with a lot of great information that Mr. Gene Smith, as well as Mr. Carlos Camacho, has prepared for us. But I want to welcome those who are here from the executive, as so CAO, Mr. Conklin, Mr. Dise, Ms. Montero-Diaz, Ms. Gwen Wright, as well, who I'm sure is going to share some updates on how it's going as they are occupying the building. So with that, I'm going to, let me see again my screen here. I am going to turn it over to Mr. Smith to walk us through the packet. And as always, colleagues, either raise your hand or just signal in some way. You can text me if you want to let me know if you have any questions or if you'd like to speak. Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me. So yes, the committees are here today to kind of walk through some of the concerns recently raised, and there's also a lot of other things that have been going on and great opportunities that the county has invested in. A lot of the initial section of the staff report just highlights a lot of the work that the council and the executive have been doing in Wheaton over the last 10 years and even beyond. And today is just a continuation of that conversation. As noted, there was a lot of work going on side of the executive side to respond to some of these concerns. Unfortunately, they were not available as the packet went out on Monday. Council staff did receive responses today, and we'll add an addendum, and I did forward that information to committee members for today. And I figured, given that a lot of the work was being done on the executive side, rather than going point by point through the kind of categories created, we should just let the executive side share their information, and if council members have questions to the specific concerns, they can respond.
Okay, so who would like to start?
Well, Madam Chair, I will go ahead and get started. For some reason, I am unable to turn on my video. Hopefully,
I did ask to see if
yeah,
they could enable it.
I just, again, maybe I'm just, too handsome for Zoom. But
there's a quota on Zoom, so maybe that's part of it.
Exactly. When you're on with David Dise,
what we had, Rich, to keep your video off.
Here I go.
There we go.
Thank you very much, and thank you for whoever turned on my video in the background. So, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, council members, I'm pleased to be joined today by Luisa Montero-Diaz, who's of course our Mid-County Regional Services Director, Chris Conklin, our Director of the county's Department of Transportation, David Dise, Director of the Department of General Services, and of course, Gwen Wright from the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission to update you on what's happening with Wheaton. First of all, congratulations to you, Madam Chair, and to the members of the committee for actually getting the building open. I know it was a huge task and much advocacy over many years to get that done. Of course, I cheered you on from afar as a representative of the Wheaton area at the state level at the time. And you and I both enjoyed the work with Adam Fogel, with your former chief of staff, and trying to get it done. And since he's been unable to join us for all these openings, I thought I'd throw his name in for the record. The county executive, as a Wheaton native, obviously is very interested about ways that we can improve the central business district, and of course, as a council member, supported this project and has both been thrilled to see its progress and its opening, and disappointed that we haven't had all of the community celebration that we would have had, and that we haven't gotten some of the things done that we had all hoped would be part of the opening. So you are going to hear today our plans to make sure there is sound and lighting available for the plaza area and for the stage, a basic package that will be there for community use. Of course, everything is wired. The power is there to actually have all of that with the stage. There's just not the lighting built in, or the sound system built in. And we'll go over the various options. You're going to hear from the Department of Transportation about ways to improve the pedestrian safety, and to make sure, certainly when the plaza is closed off for events, how we will ensure there's safety on the plaza with the traffic that will be detoured around when Reedy Drive is closed off. General Services is going to talk about, as well Ms. Wright, about both the facility, the retail, and what we're trying to do to make sure that retail space gets filled, but in the meantime is not just sitting there vacant, and another vacant storefront in downtown Wheaton, and what are some of the uses and how we might go about programming that space. And of course, the child care center, and making sure that the child care center is viable. What we've done in order to make sure Park and Planning gets a RFP out on the street that actually gets respondents, and that we can get a facility open there, and how we're prepared to assist in making sure a child care center that's offering affordable care is provided in that facility. So happy to report that the public art went up today. I don't know if Luisa is going to share photos in her presentation, but by coincidence, that started at 3 a.m. this morning, and the artwork is actually in place as we are speaking.
That's great news. I forgot to mention that yesterday I had my first meeting at the plaza. Luisa did join. Leadership Montgomery had their meeting there, and it was socially distanced and the whole thing. And it was just a pleasure to host to be part of a community meeting right there outside in the plaza. It was awesome. So can't wait to see the artwork. All right. So who would be next then? One second. Council member Reamer, do you want to make any comments, since this is a joint committee and you're the other chair?
Thank you, Chair Navarro. Apologize that I was running a little late. I was actually getting briefed on the WMATA real estate strategy, and I wanted to recommend that we convene a joint committee at some point to hear more about what they're thinking for Wheaton. So the tax incentive that we passed apparently really shakes things up and makes some changes possible in Wheaton. They think that we might want to learn more about. So there's some creative thinking happening at WMATA now that I think it'd be good for the county to kind of learn about and then think about what we might want to do to accelerate. But generally speaking, I'm glad we're here. Like you, I was so excited to be in that building. I think it is really a big success for Wheaton. I also had my first civic affair or event there recently. I attended a police reform event there, and it was really nice to be able to be at that plaza and see how well it worked for that purpose. We had a good gathering, and people were appropriately distanced. And I made the trip down Reedy Drive to get back onto Georgia. It was actually quite easy to get going back down to Silver Springs south, easier even than turning left on Veers Mill had once been. So congratulations to DOT for an artful solution or planning, I don't know. But I think the point of the meeting, as you I know expressed, is we got to keep our momentum going here, and we got to keep our eyes on the ball, and there's a lot more work to be done. So thank you. I'm glad we convened the meeting.
Thank you. I can't wait for that conversation with WMATA. That's very exciting news. Okay, so who would like to go next? Let me perhaps maybe I will turn to Ms. Wright as from the planning board perspective and what's going on there and any updates that she has, and then we can get into the other specifics regarding transportation and some of the other issues with the plaza as well as retail, et cetera. Ms. Wright.
Thank you so much for holding this session and for giving us an opportunity to talk about our wonderful new building. We're very, very excited. We, meaning staff from the Department of Planning and the Department of Parks and the chair's office and our MNC PPC credit union have all been in the building for nearly a month now, and we are loving every minute of it. It is a wonderful building. It's a very peaceful place to work. I'm there probably 3 or 4 days out of the week, and our staff is coming in, although we're still on maximum telework. We do have a number of staff who do come in pretty much on a daily basis. We are maintaining our social distance and not having too many people on each floor at a time. So we're monitoring that carefully, but we do we have a lot of happy campers, of people who are working in this wonderful new building. We've also been really enjoying being part of the Wheaton community. We participated in the Wheaton Arts Parade, which was being done a little bit virtually this year, and had a wonderful collection of pyramid art pieces that were made by artists in the community, which were placed all around downtown Wheaton, and people could walk around and look at them. And we actually took 4 of those pieces after the 2-week tour was over, and we've placed 4 of them in the lobby of the building, and they are being enjoyed by everyone who's seeing them there. They are outstanding. We're enjoying patronizing the restaurants in downtown Wheaton. I know that on the day yesterday, I think it was, when Leadership Montgomery was there, I went to Filippo's, and there was a line of people lined up to buy lunch, and the owner was there, and he was very happy. He was very, very happy. And so, all of that I think is going very well. We are very happy that our colleagues from the executive branch have been moving in. It's been great to see some of our colleagues in the elevator. I've seen Mitra Pedowing several times from DPS, and we're definitely enjoying the proximity of our executive branch colleagues. The one thing that I was asked to give a brief report on was the daycare center. I think, as most of you know, we had issued a RFP that we hadn't gotten responses on, and then we, after that, held a event with daycare providers to find out what we were missing, what we needed to do to have a better RFP. We also, around that time, started coordinating closely with Health and Human Services and to work with them because they have so much connection to the daycare community. in the county. We also worked very closely with DOT to identify some outdoor play space, which was one of the hurdles that had been identified when we met with daycare providers. And everything looked like it was falling into place. And then, unfortunately, when we were in the spring about ready to issue a new RFP, of course, we were hit with the COVID crisis. But we are now, getting reorganized to go back out to talk about putting out an RFP. We're a little concerned about, how many daycare providers there are out there that are looking at expanding in these difficult times. We know that daycare is one of the groups that's been hit very hard by COVID, but we are looking at putting together an RFP to perhaps put out this winter. Any project, even if responded to very promptly, will take a little while to implement because the space for the daycare center is essentially a shell, warm lit space in the building, and does need to be built out. And we have identified some funding to help whoever might be the selected provider through the RFP process to help fund that build out. But we would anticipate, even in the best of circumstances, just to give you a ballpark sense of it, is from the time we put out the RFP to actually having the doors open, it's probably going to be 18 to 24 months for a daycare facility to do their design, do their build out, get up and running. So we're anxious to get started because we do know it will take a while for any provider to actually build out. And so again, I'm hoping that we can put out an RFP in the winter and get things moving. We have really appreciated the partnership with Health and Human Services. They have offered us lots of great guidance, and we continue to plan to partner with them every step of the way as we move forward to get a daycare provider up and running in the building. I'm glad to answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Thank you so much for that overview and that update. I will comment that I will make is that obviously, this particular piece of the project, the Child Care Center, was really central to what we all embraced in this proposal, because this was actually, of course, before we even launched the Early Care and Education Initiative, but we understood that we wanted to do everything possible to take advantage of county led efforts to integrate childcare spaces as much as possible. As you know, we do have a law that requires us to look at the feasibility of childcare space in any kind of public-owned facility. So we were super excited that this was built in from the very beginning. We were forward-thinking enough. So I would just reiterate that I believe that yes, we have been affected by the pandemic, and that has had an impact. I mean, we've worked really hard to help mitigate some of that, but the need hasn't gone away. As a matter of fact, I think that this is a prime moment for us to move expeditiously to get that space built out as soon as possible, so that when we start to have a better sense of how we're going to, address the pent-up demand for childcare, that we're ready. 2 years for me is completely unacceptable, since we've been waiting so long for the project to be realized. And I know that we've had a lot of meetings where, I've actually convened some of those to identify the barriers. Somehow I don't feel like we've made progress. So again, I'm cognizant that the pandemic has truly, derail a lot of plans. I understand that, but at the same time, I just think that this is a moment of opportunity right here for us to do that. It's completely aligned with our early care and education initiative goals. So I would suggest that we reconvene that conversation. And Mr. Medellino, I know that we spoke about this as well. And actually, move as quickly as possible to get the RFP going, because I think between the funds that you've identified and also some of the funds in our early care and education initiative, we should be able, I think, to assist in a way that is, appropriate to get the, build out done as quickly as possible and then be ready. We're having sort of parallel conversations with, the school system regarding things like equity hubs and the ability for us to identify space while we solve some of the licensing issues. But here we have this very important, centrally located, close to metro opportunity. So again, I want to thank you for the efforts, but I think that another meeting to literally make some specific decisions about build out, I think that's in order so that we can be ready. So just really want to reiterate that. I really think that it's just such a wonderful opportunity, and we really need to just jump on that immediately. So again, thank you so much. Who would like to go next? Should we talk about Mr. Conklin, transportation?
I'd be happy to give a general update of the status of the overall building project, and then we can talk about some of the specific concerns that have been raised. We're really excited that we got in August of this year to a point of substantial completion of the building and the public spaces, and we're able to start occupying the facilities. So that's made a big difference. It was a major endeavor over 6+ years of design and construction to get to this point. A major investment by the county, northward of $170 million in these facilities. I'm really proud to say that the project was completed, reached substantial completion on budget and within a month or two of the intended schedule, which is really remarkable given the intensely difficult working conditions that were in place March through, say, July of this year. So I have to commend Clark Construction, a Montgomery-based major construction firm in Stonebridge, Karis, the developer, for keeping progress on this moving and keeping that workforce safe during that period. It's a major accomplishment that they were able to do that. Over the last couple months, we've been working on project closeout issues, some warranty and performance related things within the building that we're managing, some issues with completing the exterior work with a major milestone today, the installation of the public art on the plaza as a major element there. And we are now in the process of working on project closeout agreements with the development team, with the agency moves into the building, and with finalizing the agreements with the commission related to the condo documents, the lease, and the disposition or the transfer to the county of the 8787 Georgia Avenue site, which would then allow us to close out all of the turnkey and development agreement contracts with the private entities that have participated in this. So while the building is done, while the spaces can be used for the public, there's still a lot going on to fully complete the project. The parking garage is the part that DOT will continue to be involved in this project, and as the owner of the below-grade structure, that's open for use. The remainder of lot 13 has been restored to a good condition and has been very popular as a parking location again to support the businesses. We know there are longer-term plans for that land, but we made a little bit more investment there than we had initially contemplated because we knew for some period of time that would be part of the fabric of this community. So we did things like completed the streetscape elements all along that block to give a more finished and complete environment rather than something that was very much temporary. We've also with Luisa's assistance, are engaging to do a public art mural installation on the north side of the building, which right now is a blank wall because eventually additional facilities will be there. But we want this whole area to be as inviting and as attractive as it can for the entirety of the time it's here. All of that said, we are having some challenges. We are having some challenges with the use of the plaza, which I know Luisa will talk more about, with some damage to some of the elements from skateboarding and some folks, homeless folks, using this as a place to be overnight and during the day. So those are issues we need to continue to work on, and we're committed to doing that. So we're really proud of where we are today. We think that this is great for the county, great for the community, and frankly, also disappointed, both because there appear to be some unmet expectations, both from the county executive's perspective. Ms. Navarro, you've raised these concerns with us as well, and community members, and we're committed to working with our other partners that are involved in this, the Urban District, Park and Planning, DGS, to make sure we follow through on those items. So that's the general overview, and if there are other questions, I'll pause for those, and otherwise we can kind of talk on some of the items that have been shared with us for specific follow-up.
Yeah, I don't see any text from my colleagues, so perhaps we'll just go through the presentations and then open it up for questions or comments. This month.
Was there anything else you wanted to cover in your packet, or should I proceed?
Please proceed.
Okay. So, one of the first concerns that was identified to us was the kind of serviceability of the stage for its intended uses. And there were really three components of that. One was the stage surface, two was the sound system, and three was lighting. During the design process, there had been a change in the stage surface to try to better meet the needs of the performance community that thinks they're going to take advantage of this space. So a wood e-paved floor has been installed there rather than the concrete that was originally proposed. So I think that will better meet the performance characteristics that we were looking for. And I do want to mention, I did have a conversation with former Director Rashti yesterday about these elements, and he was confident and convinced that these had been communicated, these decisions, but again, that's sort of neither here nor there, because at this point, if people want different fit out, different elements available here, that's where we need to go. But he did want me to share with you that he was disheartened by the comments that people found his correspondence on these items to be potentially misleading, and he had felt he had been transparent and forthright about what was included in the project. And I don't want to say more about that because I can't convey his thoughts or what might have been said between him and others, but I did want to make that statement on his behalf. In terms of lighting, there is a robust lighting system on the plaza and stage. It is designed to provide different themes of lighting for different performances. It is a color choices, different light levels. It can be controlled from that location, and that is probably satisfactory for many impromptu or smaller scale events that would happen at this location. During the design process, it had been decided, I think with consultation with Luisa's team and the WUDAC group and others, not to install permanent lighting because every performance has some different characteristics that they might need, and it's very hard to have a uniform or set package of lighting that's available. So what we've decided to do in further conversation, knowing that there's some demand for more lighting, is to do a couple test events of different setups on the plaza with the stage and see whether the lighting system that's there is adequate for those needs, knowing that specialized performance is always going to require its own specialized lighting. As was mentioned by Rich in his comments, all of the power sources are there for hookup of sound systems, but there isn't one installed. And a few options have been identified about how that could be resolved. Obviously, the base option is that performers bring their own equipment, which many of them have their own equipment, and many of them prefer to use their own equipment because they've tuned their performance to the equipment they have, and sometimes there are issues with using other systems you're unfamiliar with. But that's not really, that doesn't take any action. That can happen now. The other two options that are being explored are whether or not a base sound package is acquired for the urban district so that they have something available for entities that don't have that capability, and they can set that up when those events are permitted and for use. Or the third option that we're exploring with Luisa and her team is whether or not a contract could be, we could get a contract with a local provider that would have a variety of different configurations available for different uses. So we have just started the process to explore those, and look forward to continuing to work on that. All of that said, you know, our perspective is we don't recommend a permanent lighting or sound installation here because of the durability of it being outdoors in an open environment, and subject to misuse or abuse in those situations. So we're hoping that these others, that both the existing lighting package works for most situations, and that one of these solutions where a portable sound is available will work. You know, we mentioned at the outset there was about the public art. We had some very in-depth conversations with the urban district team and the artist a week or so ago. The art had been shipped as these issues were coming to light, and we had no better place to store the art than the installation infrastructure that was already in place in the plaza. There was no better solution for us today other than to put the art where it was designed to be in the plan. So the art was installed this morning, and we are exploring a couple other sites which had also been looked at before in consultation with the Arts and Humanities Commission and the Urban District Advisory Committee, if there's a problem with the current installation. The clearances around the art, I think, are better than they had been estimated in a preliminary way, and we're hoping to see whether the community thinks it fits where it is or not. There will be a substantial cost to move the art if we have to, but there was no additional cost to just put it here to begin with because all the infrastructure to support it had been designed there. And during the design process, this is actually not the primary location, the first location that had been planned, but there was a decision based on input from the advisory committee, Arts and Humanities and others, that this location was more suitable than where it was initially proposed at the confluence of all the ramps coming from the metro station and the metro parking garage. So we're hoping to see how it works. We're hoping this location is the right location for it, but if not, we'll work with the other agencies, primarily Luisa and her team, to find another suitable location on the plaza, and have consulted with the artist, and she's in agreement that if we decide we need to move the art, she's supportive of that decision. Any questions on those items? I don't want to filibuster.
I do have some photos, Council Member Navarro, if you're interested, if we have time. If not, I can send, I sent those to you this morning. Would you like to see a couple of from early this morning?
That'd be great.
So this is, you can see the fog from early, but it's light. So this is the structure. It's interactive, so you can, you know, walk through it, as you can see. I'm just going to sort of scroll through some of these. Let's see. Here's another view from above. I think this is probably from the 3rd or 4th floor of the building. So again, there, the stage is over. I don't know if you can see my cursor. The stage is over to the right there. And maybe one more. I'll share this one too. Yeah. So here you can see it kind of looking across Reedy, and you see the stage and the canopy there at the back, and you can kind of see its width here.
Thank you.
Great.
I think that Council President Katz does want to speak.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the presenters. My wife and I actually had the real pleasure of going to, I guess it was considered a parade. It was a different kind of a parade for the Wheaton Arts. Luisa was there as well, and it really was fun. I mean, my wife always teases me that I need to walk more, and because of that, you had to walk from spot to spot to see the various art projects, and of course, the fact that they based it on triangles made so much sense. It's the Wheaton Triangle, or pyramids, I guess is what it was called. But it was based on the Wheaton Triangle, and that was in itself historical. It was informational, and it was fun. So I congratulate everyone involved. I mean, I've known Wheaton my whole life. I've never lived there, but I certainly have visited there many times, and over the years I had many friends who lived near that area and down Georgia Avenue. And truly, this is the word revitalization truly comes to mind when you're seeing Wheaton. It's not done, and we understand that, but it really has made a huge difference. So I believe that it's truly the correct step in the right direction, and I believe that this will, when things calm down, improve the employment for that entire area. So thank you very much for all your efforts.
Thank you, President Katz. Let's see. So, Mr. Conklin, are you finished with your presentation?
I have more information on the traffic-related elements, but I see Councilmember Reamer's also looking to speak.
Okay, then you have Councilmember Reamer, and then we can address the traffic issues as well. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Thought I would just follow along Sidney Katz's comments. I know Councilmember Navarro felt the same way at the time. I spent a lot of time in Marshoni's, Mr. Leo's Deli. My campaign office used to be on that block in Triangle Lane. And I made a promise to Mr. Leo that he would make it through, that we would come up with an approach that would help him get through. And I think that is the approach that is now open. It's building on that lot in a controlled environment and getting it done quickly. And the news that he has weathered the storm as we hoped, and Councilmember Navarro leading us to create the impact funding, which I think was very useful. It's so, it just makes me happy to know that community treasure and that wonderful man and his family and all of his employees who he's always treated well, are still here. It's symbolic of the strategy that sought to leverage Triangle Lane and make that support its future as a community retail hub where there's really interesting storefronts. We're going to get, more and more small businesses thriving there. So I was glad to hear the news. I think Luisa, you shared that there was a big line outside this morning or something like that. So it just made me smile. Thank you.
Yes, it's truly exciting because no matter how much you plan ahead, there's so many forces. Obviously now with the pandemic, we have to now deal with that. But I agree. I think the fact that businesses like his and others are still there, it's a real testament to the fact that this was a really amazing collaboration to get us to this point, and hopefully a model that we can really replicate. So it is really, really exciting. Okay, so let's see, Mr. Conklin, if you can talk about some of the traffic issues.
I will. So in terms of the revitalization project, obviously our role is winding down as the project is complete and others take over. But in addition to the parking garage, the other component of this that we will have continuing engagement in is the proposed traffic mitigation in and around the building. I'm going to go a little bit out of order compared to the packet you have, because I want to stay focused on the plaza for a moment. There's been a lot of attention to how the two plazas, both the one in front of the building and the town square, link together to provide a coherent event space. And the sizing of that pedestrian table is really a critical element of that. There had been a lot of discussion about whether to break that up into small, discrete crosswalk areas. But that would really impact the functionality of this as a single space because we might have had multiple grade changes. And the way that it's designed now, it's designed so that with relatively simple installation of movable barriers at the Grandview intersection and at the Triangle Lane intersection, those two areas can come together as one open community space. And Michael Paler, who's on the meeting with us today, is currently looking into 3 different systems about how to make that a routine and regular occurrence so that it's always happening the same way for every event. Everybody knows what to expect and how to use it. He's looking at 2 different movable barrier systems, or whether we install a removable bollard system, which would have a deeper foundation and you could lock and unlock bollards to that during events. So we're exploring which of those is the right configuration for Joe and his team to use on a routine basis that also provides the right crowd protection for errant or purposeful misuse of vehicles. And we're going to be coming to a decision on that in a few days so that we can procure and have those available for the next festival season. Hopefully in the spring we're able to have more public events. And there are some other enhancements to the crosswalk that are also planned there with some flashing beacon treatment. But so far it's working pretty well that cars are behaving themselves in that space and the pedestrian flow is working well. And in all of these events, the intention is to keep Triangle Lane and Grandview open to serve the businesses that need it. But I wanted to touch on that first while we were on the plaza. There are a host of other traffic improvements that have been planned to support the full occupancy of the building. One of those is Grandview and Blue Ridge getting an additional northbound lane on Grandview as it approaches Blue Ridge. Another is Blue Ridge and Georgia Avenue, an additional left turn lane for northbound traffic there that has an associated traffic signal reconstruction. There's operational changes and operational changes were planned at Georgia and Reedy, but we now know that we have to replace that traffic signal in order to do it because it's damaged from a windstorm and can't be changed at this point. There are changes on Veers Mill Road to channelize traffic coming around the tip of the triangle to access the mall, to force them to bypass the first entrance to the mall so that we don't have an uncomfortable, dangerous weaving situation there as people come around the corner now that you can no longer go straight across Greedy. And there's some further enhancements to the crosswalk on Grandview at the middle to north end of the redevelopment building and better controlling the illegal U-turn that has been happening since that diverter has been installed. So those are all in progress. Many of them will be completed in the next calendar year, in calendar 21. There are a couple that have that are going to take longer because we have to get our state permits and coordination in place for the traffic signal reconstructions. So there are a couple that drag into 22, and the one that we don't really have a firm timeline yet is the Reedy Drive Georgia Avenue signal because that damaged condition is a relatively new discovery. But all of these improvements, none of them are an additional budget request. We have been looking to some of our level of effort CIP projects, traffic signals, BIPA in particular to fund these. So they're being implemented through the department's regular CIP programs. And that's kind of it on the traffic mitigation front. They are all in the works, but a little bit behind the building opening, obviously, as that's already occurred.
Okay, thank you. One thing that I forgot to ask, I know that we had some conversations about Triangle Lane installing kind of like those string lights that you saw on Bethesda Row, with the hope that this would be almost like an activated cafe kind of feel. I know that obviously because of the pandemic, et cetera, that's a little bit behind, but are there plans to do that, to provide that kind of lighting?
Yes, we have developed some concept plans for the string lighting between the building and the Triangle Lane buildings. As we go through the project closeout process, we're looking to see whether there are funds remaining in the turnkey contract that we could use to do some of those additional enhancements. We don't know that now. We're just starting that conversation with the development team next Thursday, as they need to sort of go through all the subcontracts, make sure there are no claims or overruns that haven't necessarily made their way through all the accounting. But we are hoping that we have some funds left in the overall program to do that, because we agree with you that I think that would be a major enhancement to the character of Triangle Lane.
Great. So keep us posted, given that this was one of the promises we made. So I want to make sure that regardless of what happens with the closeout, that we're able to hopefully identify some funds in order to do that. I think that would really give it a nice boost to the goals that we have for this project. It'd be really, really cool. Yeah. Okay, so who would like to be next? With Ms. Montero want to brief us also on some of the issues with the plaza, and then we can also talk about the Arts and Cultural Center, anything else that DGS may want to share with us.
Yes, happy to. Thank you, Councilmember Navarro, and thanks to you and to Committee Chair Reamer and to the committee members for really making this opportunity available for us, but also for the community to really get an update on what has happened and what is currently happening with the Wheaton Revitalization Project. I just want to I was in the building, as you know, yesterday, and another anecdote is that I was going to my car at the end of the day, and I overheard two recreation staff members talking about how they were making the rounds and going to a different restaurant each day that they were working. And then they saw me and asked me for advice and recommendations. And of course, I can't give one recommendation. I have to say you have to try them all. But one of the things that we are doing for the employees that are coming to the building, and they, again, unfortunately, it's a little bit piecemeal. Not everyone's there at any given time, but the Wheaton Urban District has been working to put together little welcome bags or welcome packets for each of the employees. They will find them on their desks, hopefully in the near future. And those things include, again, information on what the Wheaton Urban District Clean and Safe team do, what are our roles and responsibilities, and how can we support the employees that are in that building. It will also include kind of a Z card attractions. It's really a cool little thing you can put in your pocket. It'll have a map of Wheaton, and it'll highlight some of the attractions in and around Wheaton, including some of our public art that we have in Wheaton, actually outside the plaza. We have some really unbelievably nice artwork throughout Wheaton. And it will also include a loyalty card, and we're working with our businesses, our restaurants and businesses for this, where businesses can provide little discounts, specials for the employees that are in the building, again, to give an incentive to everyone who comes there to patronize the businesses in Wheaton. So those are some of the things that we're rolling out. Again, they're rolling out a lot more slowly than we would have anticipated, but we are continuing to do that. I think, this has been a really great and a lot of positive things, but I did want to bring up a couple of things that have not been so positive and how we are attempting to address some of that. I think it was mentioned that, because of the disconnect between really moving in and having the building fully occupied and yet the plaza being available to the community, again, with no signage yet. We're working on getting the signage, temporary signage, but also permanent signage on the plaza, basically working with the Silver Spring Urban District and their experience at Veterans Plaza in Silver Spring. But we've had skateboarders that have come onto the plaza to utilize, as well as bicyclists. And in terms of deterring that, we know that signage won't deter that entirely. So what we're doing is installing, they're called skateboard guards. So you install these at certain distances on the places that they're using, and it does not deter seating and sitting on the benches, but it will be impossible for a skateboarder or a bicyclist to use it in the way that they've been using it. So I know Joe is working with NCDOT to get those installed as soon as possible. And then we've also had an increasing situation of unsheltered people staying or sleeping on the plaza. we've been working for the last few weeks with our Department of Health and Human Services, the unit that to prevent and end homelessness. And I am told, and we're looking forward to this, that they actually have funding to hire a new outreach worker, and that outreach worker will be dedicated to Wheaton. And what I really appreciated about this particular position is that they will also be charged with working with our businesses. And so they will be, again, obviously working with the people there, offering services and resources, but at the same time touching base with our businesses to assure them that we're doing what we can. It's a complex issue, and unfortunately one that we may see rise over the next few months. And so we're looking to be proactive and try to work with those folks, the sooner the better. So those are some of the things we're doing. I will also add, because I know that communication, was a concern. And, I have to say that this has been, as I think Chris said, a 6.5-year project. The construction itself has been 3 years plus. It's a complex project that had a lot of moving parts. And so knowing that at the beginning, once the construction started, we instigated that on every WUDAC agenda, most months on the WUDAC agenda, we had Keith Compton come and give updates on the construction, what was going on, if there was anything that, he felt the community should be aware of. And so he was on the agenda every single month for WUDAC meetings for about 18 months. And we also, in CDOT, along with Stonebridge, put together a website, wheatonproject.com, which again provided weekly updates on the construction, if there were going to be road closures, any, just general information about the project. So that was made available. And in addition to, again, if there were road closures and that kind of thing, the Wheaton Urban District, we tried the best that we could to alert all the businesses in multiple ways, just giving them a heads up that, hey, we're going to be closing one lane of Grandview or whatever. So there were attempts throughout the 3 years to keep the community informed. Having said that, I'm not going to sit here and say that every single little thing was communicated, and that perhaps we could have done a better job at communicating and keeping people informed. There were decisions made that perhaps didn't always circle back to the community in the way that I feel the community would have wanted. But I think there was an attempt made to keep people and keep particularly the businesses and the residents and the Wheaton Urban District Advisory Committee as informed as possible throughout this process. So I'll stop there.
No, I really do appreciate that point, given that I also have to be cognizant that, the pandemic has thrown a wrench in a lot of the things that we are doing. I mean, we've had to divert our attention to the emergency at hand, and we are still under a state of emergency. So I am cognizant of that. I guess the only piece is that because we have put in place structures such as these committees like WUDAC precisely so that there can be that liaison to the community, right? A liaison between community and the government in order to work together to address all of these issues. So, I just would like for us to, obviously, to get back into that kind of routine that have had up until now, so that as some of these issues are identified and they're communicated directly through their meetings, that immediately there's a triage for answers to those. Obviously, as I said, I think we all need to be patient because we're dealing with an unprecedented pandemic. So that is something that has become a priority for all of us. But I just want to make sure that we use those structures that we've put in place. Again, if we have already these very amazing community members who are participating in these groups and they're bringing up issues, let's kind of troubleshoot those, et cetera, before it rises to a level where we're getting these letters and it's strange because it's as if we didn't have those structures. So I think that's important. We'll enter a different stage too. So that's the other piece, I mean, this is sort of like stage 2 of the process, and there will be some of these pieces. I'm happy to hear that you're working with HHS and all of our partners to address the homelessness issue. That is a very delicate piece. We need to figure out how do we provide the kind of resources and supports, because, again, I mean, the plaza is just new. It's new. So we want to ensure also that people understand what is the purpose of the plaza, which is for folks to come, families to come, for people to be able to enjoy, of course, under strict guidelines, et cetera. And the issue of homelessness is one that we continue to wrestle with. So we have to address that. And we, I thank you for the fact that you guys are really working on this proactively. It's going to be super important. Okay, so who's next? It's Mr. Councilmember Reamer, I think, wants to speak before we turn over to Mr. Dise.
Okay, I can wait for Mr. Dise. I can wait till after Mr. Dise.
All right, great. Mr. Dise.
Gosh, thanks. Well, a couple of issues came up that I wanted to address. One of them was something that Gwen alluded to earlier with the child care. The other portion of that street level area is the retail space, and some questions were asked about what the status of that is. And we've certainly, as Councilmember Navarro was just doing, talked about the impact of COVID. Even before that, we have been diligently going out to the market to look for tenants. We've had a number of different parties look at this, restaurants, health facilities, retail operations, and it's a challenge. There's significant build-out costs associated with this, just as Gwen was referencing with the child care, and that is daunting to some businesses. Nevertheless, we continue to go out to market. We have a broker working on this on a regular basis. We have not actively considered subsidization, but that may be an issue. We'll have to talk about that. Availability of funds to do that is not robust, but we continue to look at this. We met internally in the executive branch just a few days ago on this issue, and are sensitive to the fact that the county is diligent in talking to private property owners about having empty space and leaving it unattended to. So we may look at, until a solution is, and a tenant is located or identified, to putting in some art in the window spaces, or something that gives some activity to the street level appearance of the retail space, so that it is not a darkened window, particularly as the plaza area becomes enlivened. We don't want to be a blight on that, so we're going to look at some of those options as well. We can continue to provide council updates as we get them, but as we've all recognized, the current market is very thin for people wanting to start up new businesses while they're desperately struggling to keep the businesses that they have working. So before I move on to the cultural center, are there any questions about the retail space?
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Jawando. The only thing I would say before I turn it over is that I have a little bit of a different take on that than maybe the executive, as you have illustrated. We need to be mindful that we eliminated the incubator that used to be in Wheaton that provided support for service-related small businesses. We need to also remember that Wheaton is 40% Latino. There is a lot of entrepreneurial spirit in our communities of color. And we need to be mindful that we have other programs like the MOVE programs, et cetera, where we give assistance to, much larger businesses to come here to the county. So I think it's very important that we look at what kind of creative ways do we have to provide some incentive for this build out, especially if we have people who are probably very interested, but that is a barrier, because at the end of the day, it would be awesome if we went a little bit further, got some folks in there that can then, bring the vibrancy to the area and then they can become completely self-sufficient, provide jobs, etc. So I would very much like to see, and I know Mr. Smith is sort of awesome on the council to look into possibilities, but we do have a lot of programs in place for business development, business attraction is aligned with our economic development platform, etc. I think we need to provide some kind of a boost. It's not something that's going to be permanent, but we need to recognize that, we need to absolutely do something like that. So I just wanted to plant that.
We're not disputing that at all. Obviously, the most straightforward approach up to this point has been identify a single occupant who could fill the entirety of the space, but clearly the conditions require some alternative and creative thinking. Even whether it's a food incubator, shared space, we're going to look at a lot of other options and just talk to staff about that this week.
I appreciate that, but we have discussed this before. So I kind of would love a timeline on when we can get some actual concrete updates and possibilities, because I think we've had this conversation before. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So let's move to the phase of this is what we've identified versus let's explore some options, because I know we've discussed that. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Chair Navarro, and thank you for the presentations for everybody. I too got to enjoy the plaza twice in the last couple of weeks. Was at the gathering, probably the first, I would think, the first kind of protest gathering at the plaza, maybe in that plaza last weekend, and then I participated in the Leadership Montgomery session too, across the street in front of the building. And really appreciate all the work that has gone into it, and it's a really great space, and all that delay, not being able to turn on Reedy Drive, all that's been worth it. It's a habit there now. I did have a question about the businesses, and this is something that we've talked about in different forums before with you, Ms. Montero-Diaz, and others. Obviously, as has been mentioned by my colleagues, many small businesses, and it's a very vibrant part of our, local economy. We've done a lot here at the council to try to protect and provide, tens of millions of dollars in support for businesses to stay open. So two related questions. Are we yet, because this was brought up a few weeks ago, if we're not, I'd like us to, but are we yet tracking in a documented way how the businesses are doing in that area and who's closed, who's in danger? Do we have data on that yet? And are we collecting it?
So we have, and I every opportunity I get, I give a shout out to the Latino Economic Development Center, LADC, who's been our partner in Wheaton and has done a real tremendous job at working with particularly the businesses along the triangle. So information and reports from them, and they're really on the ground, and also from what we've seen in the urban district, there have been, since COVID started, there have been 3 businesses that closed. However, 2 of them relocated to other parts of the county, or, well, in one case, to her home. So she closed there and went back to her home business. The other one, Rockville, one did close, Wheaton Lounge. They're on the corner of Knowles and Georgia. And we've had 2 that opened or are in the process of opening. So we haven't seen like this, in a way, what I was fearing, which was a tsunami of closures. However, I still think it's a little early. I think our businesses are still struggling. And still, kind of just head above water. And it will be very telling the next few months, particularly, our restaurants, but all the businesses really.
No, I appreciate that. That would be helpful. And I think, it would be helpful for us to, whether it's MCEDC or the county government itself, combination with the regional centers, not just in Wheaton, but every place we have kind of hubs of small businesses like this, particularly restaurants and retail, that we would overlay that with folks who have received COVID assistance or PHED grants, and just see, to try to measure the best we can what that impact was and get some data on that, so that we can, as we're figuring out, I agree with you, we're not out of the woods by any extent yet. And to the extent that we can understand what has happened and how that might have helped or not helped certain businesses, that can help us as we're deliberating about what we might do going forward. So I just want to note that for Gene on our staff, and to maybe work with the executive branch on that type of analysis, I think with the co-chair's permission, but I think that would be helpful to see. And then my second question is pedestrian safety related. Obviously, as we're talking about revitalization, we're going through the SSP now, and so many things. We did some melding this morning on the pedestrian safety and bike plans. We had done, many of us participated in a walking tour of Wheaton not too long ago, or I guess pre-COVID, and I had pointed out to DOT at the time and others the issues, and I know this is an issue with WUDAC and many others, if we're revitalizing a place, you got to be able to get around there safely. And one of the things that came up that I pointed out was the crosswalk timers, and that they did not seem to be aligned correctly. There's obviously infrastructure improvements that need to happen. Could maybe between DOT and planning or whomever else, if you could just give me an update on, what's going on with that and what we've seen and how that figures into this overall effort.
I'll kick it off, and if Michael has more specifics, I'll ask him to talk to it. As each of these signals is designed, obviously it has a new timing plan. So there are 4 or 5 locations that'll get addressed through that implementation. An item that I didn't speak to earlier is there's also a new traffic signal at Price Avenue in Georgia that will better link the business activity on the east side of Georgia towards this part of the Wheaton Triangle. That's also planned to be installed this year. So those should help. Michael, I don't know if you have any more information about specific PHED interval timing in Wheaton.
No, I do not, Chris, and I think you spoke quite well on that. And when those signals are reconstructed or when they're modified, the signal timing will be adjusted according to the traffic and the pedestrian flow. So, Councilmember Jawando, if you have a particular place now that you, or any other the council members, if you have a particular area or place now that you believe is of significant import, please let me know. I'd be happy to have that evaluated and modified.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll go out and I'll follow up. We had written down some of the intersections, but I'll go back and look and follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to follow up on those, because all the countywide signals were all retimed to the appropriate walking speed, and that effort was finished about a year ago.
Yes, sir, that's correct, Chris.
If there are outliers, we definitely need to know.
Chris, I think State Highway was also planning some improvements to Georgia Avenue in terms of lowering speeds, putting in some improvements in the medians, things like that. Where does that stand? I know we've met on it, but I just don't know where it stands.
I think they lowered the speeds when they installed the on-street parking. And there are other things like the median treatment between Reedy and Price is going in with this traffic signal. It's actually the materials are available on site, and we're waiting for a little bit more prep work to be done before it's installed. And that's a very decorative treatment that is commingled with landscaping that we work closely with Luisa and her team to determine what the right aesthetics for that are.
Wonderful. Thank you. Those are my questions too. I think very important as part of the overall revitalization effort. So thank you for those updates. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Jawando. Important points. Just want to also add to that. Of course, I think the Small Business Assistance Program really did make a difference when it was envisioned. Of course, we did not realize that we would be facing a pandemic once things were done. So it's kind of crazy, but your point is very important in terms of understanding what the impact that had and where everybody is. But also, let's ensure that every time we vote on any special appropriation or propose any special appropriation to continue to support our small businesses, let's make sure that we're linking into programs like that, meaning that, for example, LEDC, et cetera, should be circling back with those businesses, because it's great that we got them to this point, but because of the pandemic, we don't want to then kind of drop the ball and just, all of a sudden they're able to close. So we should also make sure we include language in every special appropriation regarding that, so we can be totally aligned. I think that's going to be very important. And then for Mr. Gene Smith, when you address the issue of the retail space, one thing are incentives, but also the executive could negotiate lower rents. And so there are some tools there. And as we are asking for follow-ups, if we can all just get the information funneled through Mr. Smith so that he can share it with the committee members, that would be really awesome. Council Member Reamer.
Thanks. Just wanted to circle back to the point I was making earlier, which is, we're really here to talk about Wheaton's redevelopment and the success that we've had so far, as well as how we need to keep progressing. And I think we've had tremendous success so far. The county council, the commitment that has come from the council working with the executive branch, funding the library rec center and the high school and the county facility, park and planning facility, the new plaza. There's so much going on. The idea of the cultural and arts center. One of the kind of vexing issues has always been the kind of space in between the core where our building is and the mall, and in between those two hubs is sort of this very difficult section of downtown where you have to walk underneath the parking garages, the WMATA-owned parking garages. You're kind of coming in to a sort of a loading bay. And it's always been a sore point, I think, for everybody. The possibility of redeveloping that land, which is WMATA-owned, those parking garages, and replacing that with high-rises is a lot more viable today, thanks to the county council's passing the incentive for development at Metro property. It is a lot more viable today than it was, 2 weeks ago. If we could actually have that corridor serving the whole downtown and have that frontage on Veers Mill that's adjacent to the mall as part of a dynamic, street-friendly segment that blends into the mall and supports the ultimate, vision of redeveloping the mall, which the county council has embraced along the edge, in its master plans. That would be another big success for Wheaton, just as the other big successes that we've had. So I wanted to just highlight here today, we're talking about how to redevelop, how to keep the progress going in Wheaton. The county council considered several years ago a strategy that relied upon building over the bus bay. That was very expensive. That required us to spend $40 million in our capital budget. And it was well intentioned, but there was no guarantee that the development was ever going to come on top of the bus bay. We had to build a $40 million deck over the bus bay, and then we hoped that the developer would be able to entice an anchor tenant and build, a complex there. But we had no idea whether that was possible, and we will never know. So that was why the county council, we thought a wiser strategy would be to do something that was certain, that would absolutely get us the results we wanted, while being more under our control to manage the impact on the businesses and get very concrete benefits, such as the plaza and all the employees. That's why we did what we did. But now I think another question looms, which is what's next? What are the big, the cultural, the arts center is definitely next. The how we would treat that land and what we can do about that land there that's owned by WMATA. It is now eligible for this incentive. It's still enormously expensive because parking, that's a lot of parking. That would have to be moved somewhere else. But there is an opportunity now that I think we need to engage with WMATA on and try to move forward. Assuming the county council overrides the regrettable veto from the county executive, of course, which I hope we will do. But just wanted to highlight that there's an interesting opportunity ahead of us to keep the great progress going and address another critical need for downtown Wheaton.
Thank you. That's a really great overview. I recently had a meeting, I think it was about a couple of days ago, talking about exactly revitalization. We've invested over $436 million between the library, rec center, the Wheaton High School, Edison. This particular, project, we used to call it Lot 13. There is another community park coming on the corner of Randolph and Georgia. There's a really awesome story regarding what the previous council really did in collaboration with the executive, albeit at times a little bumpy. And I've shared sort of my nightmare scenario where I was like, oh my God, we spent $40 million on the bus bay platform, and then for years I'll be driving by that bus bay platform and it would be empty. And it's very strange how right now there are all these conversations taking place about the future of office space, right? And what is that going to look like? So it's very odd to be thinking through that lens. But I think this is really the signal. I always said, this is the signal. And I understand at times there were people who thought, well, this is, a lot of criticism, but this was the signal. And you're right, we're just pretty much getting started. And so I do think that opportunities like the WMATA bill, also through the SSB, the thinking around the opportunity zone, et cetera, could really provide a nice complement to what's being done here and really take advantage of that metro station. And, the results there, the opportunities that are still there are immense. So you're absolutely right. And I feel really proud of what we've been able to do here, because so many people kept saying that, that it couldn't be done. We've been able to accomplish at least, this far, and it's been state of the art. So a lot of people deserve a lot of credit. The library, rec center, it warms my heart, when I would go there and see all these incredible young people taking advantage of this amenity, and to just kind of think about where were they before, right? Where were they? And now they have the state-of-the-art facility that they can use. So, so things will get back on track at some point, but it is awesome to be thinking about next steps. And I think that's where our community, wants. So speaking of that, because Wheaton is an arts and entertainment designated area, there is also this awesome opportunity for an arts and cultural center that can, in my opinion, also just capture the spirit of Wheaton, its traditions, its extraordinary multicultural, vibrant nature, and things are moving along. So perhaps Mr. Dise can kind of update us on where we are so far.
Sure, happy to. Preliminary space planning is completed. It does include, as we've been talking with community members and a consultant. For those of you that are not familiar with the process that we've been through, we did have an arts consultant work with us in meeting with the public and a lot of arts groups to get a sense of what the community's interest was, what the need was. The report back is Councilmember Navarro is just observing that there's a vibrant community and there is interest. The space does include performance space, exhibit space, education classroom space, and so we're really excited about this. The plan is to construct it on the balance of Lot 13, adjacent to the new office building. It will, because of the limited footprint, it's going to be a 2-story building. And the biggest challenge right now is finding interest in building the residential component above that. The space plan does anticipate having an entrance to the center itself, and then a separate entrance for residences above, mixture of studio, 1 and 2 bedroom units, possibly 1 or 2 threes. the market for this community, these units in this area is not robust. I have a conversation scheduled with Stacy Spann at HOC tomorrow afternoon to get some thoughts from him on what HOC might be thinking, see if there's some interest there. This is going to require a subsidy from the county to support the residential components, but we will be issuing a request for development proposals to get input from the market this winter and find out what creative solutions the market has out there and exactly what the share of contribution from the county and the partner would be to make this a reality. I do think the Arts and Cultural Center is going to be a tremendous success and a real vital element to the area in downtown Wheaton. I think having it where it will be located is particularly good. There are other locations that we've looked at. I think this is probably the most exciting from its contribution to the Triangle cultural activities during the days, weekends, and in the evening. So that's where we're at. We have not yet scheduled or not yet met with the executive. We're scheduling a meeting with him to brief him on the details, and we could brief. I promised Councilmember Navarro a briefing once we're there. So, and I can follow up after I've had a conversation with HOC to find out what their input and thoughts are on residential development over that. It'd be a shame to limit the development to just this structure when we have so much airspace and could provide that offering. I think as we've talked with the revitalization of Wheaton, it could be a very cool place to live right in the Triangle. And so we don't want to miss that opportunity. So that's where we're at right now. As I said, a request for development proposals will go out this winter, and we'll find out what the market interest is from that standpoint. Any questions?
Yeah. Well, no, thank you for that update, and we'll make sure again through Jean that we, share whatever updates there are for the Arts and Cultural Center. I just want to share with my colleagues, there was one moment where it became clear to me that this would be such an awesome addition to the county's art community. And it's when I visited Little Haiti in Miami, and they have an arts and cultural center there. Of course, it's funded through their children's trust that has $100 million in the budget, but I digress. But when you walk into that center, it just screams, culture, pride. The art just surrounds you. I mean, from the moment you walk into the counter, it's just, Haitian art that has been, with lacquer on top. But the entire community utilizes that center before after school activities, if people are interested in Haitian art. So that's a very specific, obviously, community. But that concept of a place where so many of the amazing arts and traditions that exist in this county vis-a-vis is such an international county. I just keep thinking of how cool it would be, to just, you can sign up for classes on different types of art forms and dances, or there could be, exhibits of art from around the world. It would just be so amazing, and a compliment also to our education needs, because, so many of our young people, in my opinion, many who sometimes feel disconnected or disengaged, it's a lot of it has to do with the lack of just representation in their surroundings. And so having that outlet through art would be extraordinary. The residential part, as my colleagues know, that was expected to be a component of this project. And it was just heartbreaking that, somehow the finances didn't work. So here we are. We need to take advantage of that. And there's been also conversations, as and lots of articles coming up regarding some of the horizon issues because of the pandemic, of folks who are looking at the suburbs, Also in terms of young professionals who may be looking at starting families, etc. There's just a lot of things that are moving, and that would be a prime place for more residential units aligned with our housing goals. So I think, I believe, I know Councilmember Reamer and I have been in some meetings also with some, folks who are doing really innovative things. I mean, there's a lot of energy. So if we can just all kind of work together to see where we go, because there's no doubt that if we're going to build the Arts and Culture Center, it would be much better if there could be some kind of like alignment with those projects for efficiency of cost. And if we could align all of that, then we can kind of complete that whole package. So anyway, any updates definitely we'll share, and I just would really love if we could start wrapping up some of these pieces, because as I said earlier, many of these things we have discussed for quite a while, but we kind of need to now have an action plan in place that we can execute and work together on making it a reality. So cool. Anything else that we missed? I'm trying to think of anything else that was missing. Mr. Smith?
I was just going to note there was continued conversation about how the Wheaton Urban District's budget will need to continue to be supported and augmented for these additional services and programs. As noted in the staff report, the Urban District has been supported and has increased in support. I should say the council has increased the support over the last decade or so. I will briefly just note executive staff's response, note a lot of the interest from the community are already included in the budget. Some of them are going to have savings this year due to COVID, which will help. There are some additional staffing that might need to be included. And certainly as the executive considers the fiscal 22 recommended budget and as the council considers the fiscal 22 operating budget, they can consider these concerns there unless the executive believes there's an opportunity that requires a supplemental. The last thing I'll just note, since we were talking about the Latino Economic Development Center and its work, that budget and that work has been included in the incubators NDA, and so that work is ongoing, even though the technical assistance will likely change. And certainly as the county considers post-COVID era, that's an opportunity for that particular contract to kind of be melded. Also speaking to Mr. Joano's concern of how to work with businesses in Wheaton. And that is not in the Wheaton Urban District budget, but it is included in the county's budget. So I just wanted to make sure that was noted for the council members. I'll pause there in case there was any additional comments executive staff wanted to make about the Wheaton Urban District budget. Other than that, we've covered all the items that were of concern in the staff report.
Awesome, thank you for that. Ms. Montero.
Yes, thank you. Just one caveat to add to that, because so while there does appear to be an increase in appropriations, I just wanted to make the point that most of that were wage adjustments and annualization and motor pool increases and things that were really not about our operations. So thank you so much for the $300,000 increase. That was a significant increase for us this year for the expanded responsibilities. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Those are really critical points. I appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Smith and Ms. Montero. Our CAO is here. I think that I can speak for my colleagues that, of course, our expectation is that now that we've gotten to this point, we need to make sure that everybody has the appropriate resources to be able to now take on these additional responsibilities. Because, of course, as we know, everybody is kind of watching carefully to see how things continue to thrive, and we don't want to, because of lack of resources, then find ourselves in a situation where things may not, be happening the way they should, or things are not being taken care of the way they should. So as you're, putting your budget together, please take that into consideration that, now that Wheaton has reached this level, we really do need to make sure that the funds are there. That would be awesome. And then I'm thinking that, we're in October, if we could maybe find time, I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe January to get a formal update, but in between, if we could just get information, that would be awesome. But I guess, January would be a really good time to just kind of see where everything is. We can assess. Hopefully, things are not just getting worse because of the pandemic, but maybe also that, allows us some time to get a follow-up, but also have some understanding of where the budget may be going and things that may be coming up that the county executive should be looking into. So if that's okay with the other chair, Councilmember Reamer, maybe we can we can work on that. And then, but in between, if we can get some answers to the questions and just progress reports of some sort, that would be also really great. Okay, well, I think that's it. Let me check my texts. Miss Councilmember Reamer. Oh, Councilmember Reamer.
I just, at one point, Gwen Wright was going to weigh in, and we just kind of kept moving, but I thought maybe we could see.
Sorry, Gwen.
I was just going to add that Wheaton is a great market. When we were looking for some parking spaces for our fleet, I was talking to the owners of the building where the Safeway is to see if they had any empty spaces. They came back to me and they told me they are 97% leased in that building. And I think that's what we're finding is that there is a strong housing demand, and the buildings that are being built are being leased up and leased up quickly. I did want to note that we are working on one large development project in Wheaton, which is at the Ambassador Hotel site up at the corner of Beers Mill and University, which is a partnership with HOC and a private developer, and that we have had initial good conversations, although very, very initial, with both WMATA and with Westfield about their interest in doing something along Beersville Road. And so there is private sector interest, and I certainly agree that the incentive that you all approved for the WMATA land is very helpful, but I did want to just offer that there is, I think, a very positive future picture for Wheaton, and both the projects that have been built that are doing very well in terms of being leased up, and in new projects that are being contemplated.
Yeah, we agree. If you recall, the Safeway project also included a hefty contribution from the county. So we'll see from the market what the expectation is for the county participation. That's what the unknown.
And Wheaton deserves every single penny and every single investment, especially if we are able to go up, 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 like we didn't do in the Metro Point development right next to the Metro there. So we have opportunities here. And we have said time and time again that anytime we have public, owned land and opportunities like that we would push the envelope as much as possible. So that's really great observation, Ms. Wright.
That's why I'm glad the CAO's in on this call.
I know, that's exactly right. We're so fortunate, but no, seriously, we can't let this opportunity go by. That was not the intention from the very beginning. So
I don't want to miss the comment that was just made. That high rise there had a hefty contribution from the county. It's extremely expensive to build high rise. It's even more expensive when you have to build a parking garage that's not even to serve your own residents or tenants, which is the case typically in metro properties. So, that's
which is why the county executive supports that sort of case by case approach to reviewing projects.
Right. As do I. I mean, we've got a heavy dose of patting on the back by Councilmember Reamer here, but I think that we're all happy about the revitalization that's taken place.
Wait, I'm the one patting myself on the back here.
No,
what do you mean?
I was coming to you too, and I actually was going to contribute to patting you on the back for the small business program in Wheaton. And
Please,
I think, so
proceed.
I think that, yes. So I think that has gone very well, but I think
for some council members and knives for others. I know how the county council goes.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. But the case by case analysis, Mr. Dise, I think is important, and all these. It's a great place to live. A lot going on there, so I'm excited about looking at those. So thank you.
Well, that's why we're going to test the market and see what we get back, and that's when it'll be decision time.
Amen. All right.
That sounds like a great plan. So, we've been patted, and really, everybody should pat themselves on the back actually, because all of this took a lot of work from everyone here, and it's really a great time and a great moment for this community. So this is very exciting.
And I think that's why question A and question B are so important about
indeed
the future of our abilities to do so many things, about the future of our economic vibrancy and bringing jobs to the county and activating these areas that are poised. There is no doubt there's a lot at stake here. And so I think, and I appreciate Ms. Wright's comment, because for such a long time, there was a lot of concern and criticism about the level of occupancy rates in some of these projects, and you see that there is a pent-up demand. There's no doubt. So again, I'm just happy that we can facilitate some of that. Other jurisdictions are doing it, and so we don't want to be left behind. That's the whole point here. So anyway, we got some follow-ups. I think this is a great briefing, great update. Again, thank you, everybody. And I don't see any other text, so I just checked. So I think with that, we're adjourned. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.